Hey there, welcome back to Branded. My name is Sarah. I'm your host, and today we're talking all about AI, but not in a it saved my business kind of way because it didn't. But it has definitely changed the way I work. So let's get into that part, right? We hear so much about how AI is going to replace everything you do and you need to adopt it immediately or get left behind. And quite honestly, that's false. That's a scare tactic to get more users. So, yes, the conversation feels like overhyped garbage. And yes, AI sometimes produces mediocre content, but we already know these things. So, you don't need me to add to that conversation, right? What I want to talk about is that honest middle ground, the version that most established founders are actually living, but they never really talk about out loud. Because that honest middle ground, it's not as interesting to post about and it doesn't get the engagement that fear and hype get. But this is where most of us actually are. So I think it's worth talking about. So this might sound familiar. When AI tools started becoming genuinely usable by like the everyday person, I was trying them all, right? Everyone was. I was curious about it. And in the beginning, there was this real excitement about what was possible. You could generate content in like seconds. You have a first draft of something, and the time it used to take you to like open a Word doc. You can ask a question and get a thoughtful, structured answer that probably would have taken about 20 minutes of research to assemble yourself. And some of that is genuinely useful. Like, I'll never pretend that it's not. But what I started to notice pretty quickly when I was playing with these AI tools is that the output was decent. Sometimes it was better than decent, right? But more and more, it just never sounded like me. And when I used it for client facing work, there was this sort of like flatness, this sameness, this kind of boredom that I kept having to edit out of it. And it might have like felt professional, but it didn't feel personal. It didn't feel like me, like something that was written for someone, who had like read a lot of content, but hadn't actually lived inside of the business to really know what they were talking about. So I started to pull back. And for a little while, I didn't use any AI tools at all because I was so frustrated by how generic the output was. And every now and then I would dabble in, right? So I didn't pull back 100%, but I stopped reaching for AI as the first tool. And I started being much more selective about where it actually was helping me in my business versus where it was just making things faster, but in a way that actually created more shit for me to fix, right? You know what I mean here. So eventually I came back to it, but with a very different expectation. And that's where this conversation starts to get interesting because the first thing that I had to really unlearn was when most people start using AI, they use it as a generator, right? They ask it to produce things, write this email, draft this caption, write an outline of this offer. And it will, right? It'll do these things very willingly, very quickly, and with like this air of confidence that's kind of disarming, right? The way AI just spits things out at you, and you're like, holy shit, that was fast. But here's what I noticed when I was using it in that way. I was starting to outsource the thinking, not just the writing, but the thinking. And the thinking is actually the part that makes the work really good. That's the part that makes the work unique to you. So when I sit down to write an email to my subscriber list, the value is not simply in the sentences on the page, screen, whatever. It's in the decision about what do I want to say? what's actually worth saying right now? What does my audience really need to hear versus what I just feel like talking about or what AI just sort of spit back out to me that sounds pretty legit, right? What is true about where they're at that hasn't really been named yet? That's not something AI can do. Not because it's not a smart tool, obviously it is. It's because AI doesn't know my clients. It doesn't know what conversations we've been having for the last 3 months. It doesn't know what maybe I noticed on a client call last Tuesday that has been sitting with me and it just really needs to come out. AI can execute. What it cannot do is decide what's worth executing. And the moment I stopped asking it to think for me and started using it to help me move faster after I'd already done the thinking part, everything changed. So here's where it actually saves real time every day in my business. And I want to get specific here because I think specificity is what's missing from some of these AI conversations. The places where AI has genuinely made my work faster and better are actually quite narrow, but they're very real. So the first would be research. If I need to understand something quickly, AI is genuinely an excellent tool at giving me structured overview that points me in the right direction. And this is not a replacement for going deeper and really understanding something, but as a starting point to save me that first 30 minutes of just like getting oriented around something. The second thing I love to use it for is getting unstuck. When I have something I need to write and I know what I want to say, but I just can't find that opening line. I love to talk it through with an AI tool because it's surprisingly useful. Not because it's giving me the answer, but because it's explaining what I'm trying to say out loud, even to a tool. It helps me find the thing that I'm looking for, right? Have you ever had this conversation with like a friend of yours and you're like, oh my gosh, I have got to talk this out with you. I just don't know what to do. Maybe it's something personal, but the fact that you get to sort of brain dump and talk through something that's keeping you stuck, so helpful. And AI is a great tool for that in your business. It helps you sort of find the thing you're looking for and get a little unstuck. It's basically you're thinking out loud with a tool that's going to reflect back at you, but like in a different structure. So it helps you think about it a little differently. The third way I like using AI is first drafts. First drafts of things that can be tedious, to be quite honest. So, like certain emails that maybe you have to write, maybe there's a series of onboarding emails that you need to put together after an offer gets sold. You don't necessarily need to write those yourself. You can put your voice into the prompt of the AI tool and say, hey, I need pretty simple, straightforward onboarding emails after I sell XYZ offer. And in these emails, I need to make sure they have this information, upsell this offer, and give them this, sort of access. Boom, done, right? First drafts. And then you go in and you build the email and you get to tweak it. Some structural documents, like if you've got privacy policies or terms and conditions or something where you're like, okay, I need a little bit of that legal jargon that maybe I don't know. So some structural documents, kind of SOPs, things like that. AI is great for that, especially for the first draft, because then you can go in and you can personalize it to your business. Things that maybe need to exist and need to be correct, but they don't necessarily need your voice. That's where this tool is so great in those first drafts. It's the kind of writing that is functional rather than relational. So AI handles all of those things really well, and I don't feel like I'm losing myself by letting it do those things. The fourth way I really like using AI, and this one actually surprised me a little bit, is having it as a thinking partner for some strategy, not to make decisions. Let me be very clear about that. Not to make decisions, but to stress test them, to really like see all sides of that decision. Let's say I'll share an idea with the tool, right? And I'll ask it to push back. I'll describe a positioning sort of direction that I want to go in, and I'll ask, what am I missing? I'll outline an offer structure and I'll ask, where are the gaps? So it doesn't always catch something that I didn't already know was missing. But the thing is, sometimes it names something that I've sort of been tiptoeing around without actually landing on. So these four things, quick research, getting unstuck, functional writing, and stress testing my strategies, this is where AI has genuinely earned its place in my workflow. But here's the part that I actually think matters a little bit more. AI did not fix anything structural in my business. And I say that not as a criticism of the tool, because as an honest observation about what it is and is not designed to do, if your onboarding sequence is unclear, AI will help you write a much clearer version of an unclear sequence. But it will not tell you that the sequence is solving the wrong problem. Like maybe it wasn't the onboarding sequence that really was the issue. It won't notice that the friction your clients are experiencing is not a copy issue, it's a structural issue. It'll produce what you asked for, which is only useful if you ask for the right thing. So if your sales page is not converting, AI will certainly give you alternative copy, but it will not tell you that the offer positioned has drifted from what your actual clients are buying. That's something that only you know. It won't notice that the page was written for a buyer you attracted 2 years ago. It'll rewrite what you gave it in a slightly different way. So if your emails aren't landing, AI will suggest different subject lines, different opening hooks, but it's not going to tell you that your list has outgrown the content that you're sending. It won't notice that your audience is more sophisticated than your messaging. In every case, AI on the surface, it will do the thing you show it. It never sees underneath. It doesn't know the history of your business. It doesn't understand the context that makes some things really land and other things fall flat. And it absolutely cannot diagnose a structural problem from a prompt. So the founders that I see getting into some muddy water with AI, they're not the ones that are using it badly. They're the ones using it to move faster inside of systems and strategies that already aren't really working. And moving faster inside of something that's not working just gets you to the wrong destination a little bit more efficiently. Because AI is an accelerator, right? You can think of it as this thing that, like, it's like a bullet train, right? It's going to amplify what's already there, which means if what's already there is solid, it helps you do more with it. And if what's there has a bunch of cracks and gaps and holes in it, it'll just help you produce more content that has those same gaps baked right into it. And there's something I want to name that, I think a lot of business owners, it's happening quietly because no one's really saying it directly. But when you use AI to write most of your content, your voice will inevitably start to drift. And not immediately and not in a way that's actually all that obvious. But over time, there's this sameness that starts to present itself, a certain evenness of tone, a tendency towards, completeness and structure that feels professional, but lacks the specific texture of how you're actually thinking and talking. And whether you know it or not, your audience knows your voice. even if they can't articulate what it is, they've been reading your emails and listening to your lives or your podcasts, and they've been seeing your content long enough to have an internal sense of what you sound like. And when that starts to shift, even subtly, they feel it. Engagement changes, not dramatically, just slightly, and slightly is enough to matter over time. So the solution isn't stop using AI entirely, right? It's to use it in a way that keeps you in the thinking seat. You do the positioning, you do the angle, you decide what is true and worth saying. And then if you're using AI to help with the execution, you edit it back into your voice rather than publishing what it produces word for word. The difference between using AI as a ghostwriter and using AI as a first draft is the difference between outsourcing your thinking and outsourcing your typing. One costs you your brand. The other simply saves you some time. So when I came back to AI after stepping back for a little bit, the thing that was different was my expectations. The first time around, I think I was hoping it would make certain parts of the work easier in a way that would free up more of my capacity for other things. And in a way, it did that in some places. But I was also hoping it would solve problems that weren't actually content problems, and it didn't because it couldn't, right? The second time around, I knew what I was working with. A very capable, a very fast, completely context-free tool that's excellent at execution and completely dependent on me for direction. Once I accepted that fact, I stopped being frustrated by what it couldn't do and got much better at using it for what it could do. So the founders who are getting the most out of AI right now are not the ones who adopted it fastest and who use it the most. They're the ones who are honest about what they need and they stay realistic about what the tool can actually provide for them. They kept the thinking, they kept the voice, they kept the judgment, and then they let AI handle the parts that were genuinely tedious and didn't require any of those things. So I think the most useful thing I can offer here is not a framework or a list of things to do next, right? It's a single question to ask yourself every time you're reaching for an AI tool. Am I using this to move faster on something that I've already thought through? Or am I using this to avoid thinking through something? If it's the first one, AI will serve you well. You've done the work that matters and you're using the tool to execute more efficiently. That's a great use of the tool. But if it's the second one, it's time to pause because what you're about to produce will be faster, but it will not be better. And in a lot of cases, it'll create more work on the back end when you have to go back and fix the thing that AI executed before you were actually clear about what you needed. So AI is not going anywhere. The conversation about it isn't going anywhere. And the pressure to use it more, adopt it faster, and like build your whole freaking business around it is not going anywhere. But your business is yours. Your voice is yours. Your judgment about what your clients need and what is true about where they are is yours. No tool, no matter how capable, is going to be able to replace those things. So use the parts that help. Leave the parts behind that are costing you. That's honestly the whole strategy. So share this with someone who hasn't found their way with AI yet. You know, it's not necessarily going to save their business, but it could change the way they work. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode. Bye, you guys.